Hello, Hockey World. Hey, how y'all doing out there? It is the beginning of the second round of the playoffs. It is Tuesday. It's Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023.
He had to look at the calendar. I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Jan Levine.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Hi, Michael. Do days really matter if you're just on hockey time? Like we play every day of the week.
Yes.
Well, you have to know when to turn on the television.
The only thing about weekends is I don't have to worry about the podcast. That's the only difference. I'm Macklin. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast. I'm Macklin. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you on the coming stories in the hockey world. And we've got two Rangers people here today, which I assume is where we're going to start. Russ, you and Jan, take it away. Russ, what's up?
Well, I'll let Jan go first because his time's limited, and then I'll bounce off of him.
Yeah.
Where do I start? So the word pathetic performance kind of comes to mind. Now, let me take a step back. First, congrats to the Devils. I mean, they clearly deserve the series. I mean, playoffs is all about a battle of attrition, which if anybody's seen all the injuries that Tampa Bay had, you understand why the playoffs are always a battle of attrition, but it's also a battle of adjustments. And after games 1 and 2, New Jersey did the far better job of adjusting. And part of that is what gets into the potential for the future for the Rangers, because one of the major criticisms over Gerard Gallant over the years has been his inability to adjust, especially in game, but between games, right? His shelf life with teams has been 3 years. Rangers were cruising game 1 and 2. You can argue that game 3, even though they were kind of outplayed, they had a shot to win the game, and the penalty on Igor Shesterkin on Timo Meier, which was a rather bad call, clearly kind of changed the momentum. But after game 3, the Devils found what was working, right? They played that 1-4 neutral zone trap. They pressured Adam Fox at the point in terms of on the power play, taking away his ability to find space. Rangers finally adjusted in game 6, and then yesterday they came out completely flat. Now, part of that is not always on the coach because players need to be self-motivated. And honestly, if you can't figure a way to get yourself motivated for a game 7 in the playoffs with a shot at advancing, when you see Boston's been knocked out, Tampa Bay's been knocked out, Colorado's been knocked out, all the veterans in the room, that's on the players, but it's also on the coach, because a criticism of Gallant is his teams a lot of times have not come to play, right? A lot of the games they've been cratered, and they've just stayed in games because of Igor Shesterkin. And yesterday, I wrote in my blog 2 things. One is effort beats talent when the talent has no effort, and will beats skill when the skill has no will. And if you look at the first 2 goals that New Jersey scored yesterday, the first one came on an effort play that was set up by Plot and McLeod. And the second goal was John Marino and then finding Tatar in front of the net, where I don't know what happened to Adam Fox this series, but something better be materially wrong with him injury-wise, because he was absolutely brutal. And both of those plays are pure effort plays. You see Nico Hischier. I mean, the basic encapsulated the entire Devils' effort was the play where Hischier and Shesterkin got into it, where Hischier went hard to the net and knocked over Shesterkin, but basically made the effort. Find me one play in the 7 games that the Rangers played where they went hard to the net, where Vanacek was bumped into, where Schmid was bumped into. Where you found
Kreider did that
once, right? But there wasn't. I mean, every player on the Devils, you can argue, made an effort, right? You could see the will that they had, and that's not the only reason why they lost. But when your big name veterans did not show up this series, right? I'll let you go ahead and because I have a couple more things to add, Mike.
Well, I was just going to say Trocheck did it in game 7. He went to the net, and then Kane almost scored on that play, and that was one of the few times Kane had a really good offensive opportunity. But go ahead, Jan, because I know your time is limited.
Well, so look, Artemi Panarin did not have a good postseason last year. He had the 1 goal, I mean, obviously the game winner in overtime against Pittsburgh, but there was a lot of whispers last year, right? The jury was not happy about the effort or the performance of Panarin. I can only imagine what was going through his head watching this series, because he was flat out invisible. Mika Zibanejad did not have a good series. Part of it may have been the defensive responsibilities he had, but he did not have a good series. Adam Fox, other than the first 2 games when he was racking up points in the power play, had a brutal series. Keandre Miller was exposed as being a forward playing defense. He had a brutal series. Trocheck had a mess series. Kreider, great first 3 games, not great games 4 and 5, better game 6, and a complete disappointment, as he said, is a -4 in game 7. The only guy you can really look at who came to play every single night was Igor Shesterkin, and Henrik Lundqvist was probably watching that broadcast last night going, this kind of looks familiar. I've seen this game before. There's a deja vu all over again moment for me. So you don't like to have sacrificial lambs, but as Elliot Friedman said today, A, you know what Drury's like. B, I wouldn't say Drury's safe because we all know the person who controls the purse strings in New York has a very short fuse. And we saw what happened with John Davidson and Jeff Gordon with Glenn Sather playing a part in that. I would say, honestly, nobody is safe right now in terms of the leadership committee, be it right or be it wrong because of the way things ended. And if I'm the Rangers, I sure as hell hope the New York Knicks go on a long run to make James Dolan really happy, because if not, he's going to have a heavy trigger finger, and who knows where it's going to land.
All right, so
Great points.
a few points. Being at the game, first thing I'll handle the management thing first. Most of the people think that Gallant's gone, and nobody thinks Drury's in trouble. Now, I'm not saying Drury has done a good job. His asset management hasn't been good, and he should have passed on Kane twice. Apparently Kane wanted to just be a Ranger so bad that Drury just finally said, okay, it really wasn't Dolan at all. So that's on him. As far as the play, I think the Rangers figured out after that first scoring chance and Schmid stopped it and it didn't go in, that they were unprepared for this game. Like, they were unprepared for the effort that the Devils were going to give. They were unprepared for the speed. They were unprepared for everything. I think the Rangers just thought that they would go in there and be able to be fancy, score some goals, and walk out of that building with a win. And when it was obvious after the first period that it didn't happen, that's when your coach has to sort of set in. Now, look, he did put the kid line out there eventually at one point. He did change a few things up, but what he didn't change was the mentality. And the mentality really should have been, listen, you know how good these guys are. You know how fast they are. We've dropped a 2-0 lead to these guys. Is this really how you want the season to go? Because, yeah, the sloppiness of the passes, like when you've got Kane and Panarin trying these boomerang passes, they're not going to work. I didn't think Fox was brutal at all. I thought Fox really, if you didn't have that pairing of Fox and Lindgren, just imagine what the score would have been in that game, because Fox, when he had the puck, was doing mostly the right things. He was. Now, K'Andre Miller, I agree with you. Like, that's a guy where you may have to explore trading him rather than giving him a bridge deal or even a longer-term contract. They're going to have to fall short now on some of those deciding things on long-term contracts. I wouldn't bring Kane back. I wouldn't bring Tarasenko back. And they're going to have to do a better job with player development and pro scouting. Like, again, they need to find the next Eli Tovanen. They need to find the next Carter Verhaeghe, because that's where they're at. They're only going to have, a few players that they can pick up at $2.5-3 million, and you can't really do anything about the top guys because they're making way too much. You can't trade them. So that's where they're at. So they're going to change the coach. If they bring in Quenneville, it's a mistake. All Quenneville's going to do is try and make them more defensive, and he'll probably make them slower in the process. What used to be a thing in the playoffs, like we used to say, oh, it's playoff hockey, it's tougher, they're going to beat you up, and it's slower. It's no longer slower. Everybody, all the fast teams have kept up their pace in from the regular season to the playoffs. The Leafs have, the Panthers have, the Devils have, and all the teams that thought that the game would change so drastically and we'd be okay in the playoffs aren't. And that's the old school thinking that I think the Rangers fell into a trap here, because in the end, they ended up, for a team that was just rebuilding a couple of years ago, they ended up being too old and too slow again.
Well, I mean, the one, Jan, I want to ask you this.
No, go ahead.
Because the one thing I would say, and I grant all your points about, and Russ's points about Gallant, but the team that Drury built going into the deadline, all the additions that they made, was not a Gallant type team. Mm-hmm. He brought in skill on top of skill. And Gallant is, I mean, look what he did, what he's done in other places like Vegas. He's had like workmanlike, tough teams, physical teams. This was not a Gallant type team, and he was given that. And that was, what I don't know, like why they doubled down on Kane on top of Tarasenko, but that just doesn't fit his style. And in the end, that's what killed them. I think they played a style that was not conducive to the team that they actually had.
Yeah, so a couple things between what you said and what Russ said. So let me start with Gallant. So Arthur Stapler wrote last night that there clearly was a disconnect between Drury and Gallant as to what he wanted, right? So the Kane thing, he clearly pushed for the trade. Now their big swing and hit, honestly, Tarasenko I thought played well. He actually is he's a much more physical player, and I thought Mikko Mikkola was actually not bad either, and provided them right. And I thought he played pretty well. So the problem the big argument was we need to lengthen the top six, which I get, and I know for all the criticism of Barclay Goodrow, right, planting him to the fourth line probably made no sense. You probably could have used him on the second line because he showed he could move up and found somebody else who was a bottom 6 winger or center that probably would have been a fit, which would have provided the balance. But as you said, Russ, Kane wanted to trade, and he got to the point where it was so quote unquote cheap that they felt they had no choice but to make the move. Not necessarily factoring in the fact that I love Kane, but he's definitely lost a step or 2 or 3 based upon the hip, and he was far from productive. I think the bigger issues, as you talked about, Russ, in terms of player development, you drafted first and second in back-to-back years, and you've gotten guys right now who is questionable as to whether or not they'd be first-round picks based upon what you've seen. Alexis Lafreniere has grown absolutely, really very little in this first several years. Now, part of that is the fact that each of them are on the third line. Part of that is that they're really not getting any power play time, as opposed to if they went to teams like, look, they're not Hughes, right? They picked the wrong year to have the first and the second pick based upon what came out, although there were guys like Chuck and others they could have taken that they wouldn't have taken at that pick. But the problem is you've utilized them based upon the manner in which they're deployed, that they haven't maximized the talent. And this is the system issue. This is the problem where you don't have the right skating coach, you don't have a right skills coach, and it's also the fact that you threw them in the lineup as opposed to both giving them a month or two down in the AHL for an opportunity to develop and broaden and maximize those skills before you brought them up. And now you have a problem where you have 2 guys, each of whom are going to be coming up on Kakko's got a new deal. Lafreniere is coming up on a new contract. We now need to figure out where they are, and you've kind of pigeonholed them in terms of utilization that they have based upon what's around them.
I thought Kakko was brilliant on Hughes. He did a great job.
Right, but the problem is offensively, neither one of them have developed at the level or the extent you expect to see for a first or a second round pick, and that's part of the criticism. But
he is 21. We have to remember he's 21.
Right, but it gets into the broader issues associated with drafting overall under Gord Clark at times. It gets to the broader development level issues in terms of, we talk about, name me the last forward other than Chris Kreider that has developed coming out of the Rangers system as a first-round draft pick. And we could probably sit here the rest of the show to try to find one because there really isn't any. And then you look at who they took a lot of times in the first round and several of the picks, Elias Anderson, right, Vitaly Kravtsov. All of that is not all of that is on the Rangers. Some of it is on the players, but a lot of it has to do with the evaluation skills that existed within the scouting system, but also development or lack thereof within the system overall. And look, Gallant is probably going to be the sacrificial lamb because, as you said, right, Mike, they didn't build a team that Gallant wanted. They probably could have done kind of a hybrid approach.
I don't think it's sacrificial. I don't want to go out and say this is sacrificial. I think some of this is on Gallant too because he does control power play. He let that power play go for like a minute 45 every time. Second power play gets like 15 seconds. A lot of those things he can still control, but Gallant kind of lets the players do what they want. And then when things start going bad, he'll just kind of change lines. But he doesn't really ever employ accountability into anything. And he doesn't talk about accountability. And that's a big problem with the Rangers.
And I said to Russ, Jan, after the game, they went 1 for their last 21 on the power play. That they gave up the short.
They ruined the chemistry of it for 6-7 weeks.
They went back to it, Russ,
and it back to it for 2 power plays.
Yeah, it worked actually pretty well in Game 6 for them.
It did, and then they went back to it for 2 power plays, and then decided to go switch it up again. That's the problem.
I mean, I think the disconnect really clear in the press conference when, Gallant's first thing says, first question is asked about talent. He's like, it does nothing to do with talent. And I think that was Gallant basically saying the difference between basically saying, give me Panarin, give me Kane, give me all you want to give. It does nothing to do with talent. He did that. To me, that was a clear shot.
Absolutely.
That was a Rick Bonus light type of.
But the point being is if you don't know what the Devils bring you by the time you've hit Game 7 and can't have your team prepared, that's on you. I mean, we all said before the series that the Devils' speed is going to be one of the major difference makers in this series because they have a ton more speed than the Rangers do based upon the lineup configuration, and that's part of the problem, right? The team overall lacked high-end speed.
So when I got the lineup sheet, you just think about it. Kane started that game on the third line, and they weren't going to start that third line against the Hughes line because they knew that that's a big mismatch. Just think about the optics of all that going into a Game 7.
But this is the thing. Okay, I will grant all of Russ's points about Kane, that he slowed down, that maybe they shouldn't have made the trade for him. He had 6 points in this series. It was not the fault of that series loss was not on freaking Kane.
So the loss was not on Kane. Actually, the best game he had was Game 2. He actually had a really good Game 2. The other games, he was average. The loss is not on Kane, but it's the broader issue that resulted from the lineup configurations, and more important, the lack of chemistry that was changed based upon him bringing him in. Remember, they played a couple times shorthanded. They didn't have the cap availability. They changed the mechanism of the lineup. And again, nothing against Patrick Kane specifically, but the problem is the way this happened from a chemistry perspective.
No,
that was a big issue also.
I was able to watch behind the play when you're not able to watch on TV, and he was absolutely giving up defensively on plays. The minute he saw there was no offensive chance, he would just give up and then go straight to the bench. And that doesn't help a team when you're down, and it doesn't help a team that actually has to kind of get something going by playing a good game where you have puck possession. Kane had very little puck possession. Mike, you pointed out one play in the third period. There was one other play in that game. But other than that, he was just looking to cherry pick. And you could see it. If you were at the game, you could see that.
I mean, honestly, like I said, look, I understand why they brought Kane in. They got him so cheap that they felt that there was no reason not to bring him in. However, as I had been talking beforehand, as crazy as it sounds, the guy who I wanted after the Tarasenko trade, honestly, was Sam Lafferty, because he's got enough speed. You could have thrown him on the fourth line. VC's not a great top six guy, but you could have put Goodrow, who basically is kind of a Swiss Army knife kind of guy who could move up, or if need be, you could have moved up one of the kids to that line to potentially play the right wing. Nothing against Kane, but the problem is as the team was configured based upon the way into the system, look, they should have probably won game 3. That game 3 was there for the taking, and they let Devils basically grab that game and grab control of the series, and it was a trickle-down impact. Once they lost game 3, they fell apart in games 4 and 5 before they finally had a little pride in game 6. And as Russ said, maybe they fell apart after the first period, but honestly, if I'd come out of that first period and I was zip and saw what the Devils had, I actually probably would have been emboldened by the fact is, hey guys, we haven't played great, but we're still zip going in, and all it's probably going to take, honestly, if we get one good goal, we have a shot at winning this series. And in essence, they couldn't do it yesterday at all.
To me, what happened real quickly before you go, Jen. To me, what happened is last year when you looked at this team in the playoffs and they're playing against Tampa, and the kid line, quote unquote, was becoming the second line, even at the first line at times in that series. Like you could see that they were turning into what you wanted them to be, you know. And by adding 2 players in Panarin and not in adding Tarasenko and Kane, you push them back to the third line again. Like, and that to me became an issue. Like, did they suddenly were a third line again, where we were progressing. They were progressing as they naturally should have. They should have been the team's first or second line this year, but they weren't.
But they didn't earn it in the playoffs. Like
again, you could also you also could have deployed the 3 lines fairly evenly if you had to, based upon the way the playing time. They finally did that towards the latter part of the season when Hedl was rolling and you got Kakko and Lafreniere. He kind of changed that a little bit come the playoff time, and part of that is this is the lack of the elite skating ability, right? It's one of those things, when years ago Barb Underhill used to work for them, right? I know that they try to hire, I'll remember her name in a minute, but the person they tried to hire last year who ended up getting a job coaching in the AHL, they were bringing her in to be that skating coach, and that's part of the difference that they need. They need somebody who's a person who, look, you have 3 or 4 guys who need a skating coach, who need to get better in terms of their speed. They need a better skills coach. And right now, you would think with all the resources they have, the inability to find that over the last 3-4 years, besides the poor drafting at times, are a couple of the hallmarks I take out of the Gorton and Drury hierarchy and infrastructure as of right now.
People don't trust to work for them, Dan. That's part of the thing. Like, I've talked to people who have been offered jobs for the Rangers, and they're like, I don't know. That's the thing that they don't. Because they look at the upper management and they see how it can be completely a bombshell the second something like this happens.
The other thing is they had only about 4 players that were really willing to shoot. Once in a while, Kane would try and sneak one like on the side post or something, but he wasn't really taking great shots. Other than Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin gave up on his shot after like 3 games. He just all he wanted to do was pass. And the coach has to recognize that and say, all right, if this is what he's going to do, then I really do have to kind of change the way I'm using him, because clearly he was mentally defeated on trying to score a goal in the series. And, again, even after that 0-0 first period, when they came out in the second period, you didn't get a feeling that they had any chance of winning this game. And I'm sorry, that is coaching, because, again, you're the one who has to motivate these guys. If you just walk in the locker room and say, hey, we're 0-0, keep it going, and you walk out, you're not doing your job. And we don't know.
Good. Sorry, Russ. One more thing I'll add. So let me be clear. I'm not taking anything away from the Devils, right? They earned this series.
Oh, no, they did.
Jack Hughes showed he's an elite player.
Yeah.
Palat yesterday showed that the experience that he had in the Game 7 and the championship pedigree he had with Tampa makes a big difference. Their fourth line, McLeod, made a big difference yesterday. I don't think the blue line was great, but the neutral zone 1-4 trap that they kind of played, and I don't mean it by a trap per se, but the way they
had three guys around Schmid the whole time. They did.
Correct. Right. So they did a good job of collapsing it, and they as opposed to passing, literally just start putting pucks on net and getting bodies in front of the guy. Right. They also fell in love after Game 6 when they got beaten up twice high, and they found rooms in the slot. They also started just shooting high on everything. They really didn't mix anything up. They basically followed the same pattern as opposed to trying to mix things up to kind of confuse them a little bit, just as opposed to just saying, oh, we're just going to keep shooting high and hopefully eventually it's going to go in. You can't do that every single shot yesterday.
So when they got Tarasenko and Kane, they decided to go with a marketing plan because that's what MSG does, and they went with the marketing plan of Showtime. If you noticed, they bailed on that halfway into it when the team started to fail in the regular season and losing their spot at winning the division. So they were looking for that marketing boost too, and it's hard to do that and win in the NHL.
Right. They could have been Showtime had Peter Laviolette been the coach because he would have played a more offensive style.
Yeah.
Again, you had players that were brought in that were offensive-minded players, and you had a defense and physicality-minded coach. It didn't make sense. And I put that on Drury. I mean, he's not going to lose his job, but yet you have to give your team the best chance to win, and you also have to cater to the coach and the style that he coaches. And by giving them water bugs who were flying around instead of guys who were going to go into the corners, that just led to disaster. Here's
an interesting thought for you guys, Rangers people. When Patrick Kane was traded here for nothing, like you talk about, like almost really literally nothing. It was part of that was based on what I hear a behind the scenes promise that he would sign there for almost nothing next year. And that, he really just wanted to play for the Rangers and he knew that the cap space wouldn't be there. So you're going to be in this spot now where you're going to have to look at Patrick Kane at like $3 to $4 million a year.
They can't afford him right now at that cost, though. That's the problem, right? They have $11 million to try to get 3 forwards, I think 2 D-men and a backup goalie, and you still also have, I think, Lafreniere and Miller, both who are up for new deals based upon again. Each one of them won't get a ton of cash based upon their performance this year. Miller last year probably would have gotten a heck of a lot more money.
Right.
Look, I also don't be surprised. Again, you would know better, and Russ, you would know also. I think Kane is going to probably need hip surgery. Right. And part of that is going to probably, hopefully, quote unquote, reduce the cost, because if it is the case where he's going to be out a while, they'll put him on LTIR to try to create additional cap space, at least in the short term, to be able to try to sign guys. But Barclay Goodrow is the guy they've talked about a lot that could be a quote unquote cap casualty. And then, yes, he is making a lot of money at $3.6 million for the way they used him. But I also think that he's been one of those guys that have been one of the better players overall who's provided them what they need.
I would rather keep Goudreau than Kane. I think they need to go in a different direction. This doesn't work right now for a team like the Rangers. It's not going to work.
It'll be interesting to see. Well, thanks, Jan. Thanks so much for jumping on. Appreciate it.
Take care, guys.
Make sure you check out Jan's articles. Amazing stuff on there. And let's move on to.
Well, let me just say one more thing, because I wanted to let Jan get the majority of the conversation. I give the Devils a lot of credit, and now I think what we talked about yesterday, I think Lindy is safe. I even if they lose to Carolina, I think he's going to keep his job. Nobody really expected the Devils to beat the Rangers.
Listen, statistically, he should be safe. Like any normal situation, any 100% normal situation, he would be safe, right? Like this is 100%. I 100% agree that, but just there's so many insides, things that I've heard that I'm really not sure that this is as normal as we think. Now, listen, at some point, when do you have to say, obviously it's working, but when do you also sit there and say, that this is just a good group of players, who are kind of leading themselves like that? Like, what is he bringing to the table? Or is he kind of taking away more than he's bringing? Could they be better than they are now, even without him? That these are the kind of questions you hear in there a lot. Like you hear, they think they're better than they are with him sometimes. So it's just it's a really weird situation, and I think that he will calmly retire. Like I just have the sense that he's going to retire. I don't know what it is, but I think he's going to retire.
Not a chance in hell.
No.
will Patrick Kane go back to Buffalo? Not a chance.
No, he's not going back to Buffalo.
He will go back to Chicago before he went back to Buffalo.
Yeah, no way. Not
He's
only
not
because
retire either. Listen, he hasn't.
He's not going to retire.
I'm just going to say this in the most basic way I know how to say, because I grew up in the New York area. I watched a lot of guys come in the middle towards the downside of their career, trying to revive it in New York, especially with the Rangers. It's the worst place to do it because when it doesn't work, all the spotlight goes to you.
I have a really weird prediction on Kane, and this is this is going to sound out of left field, but it's just something that I've heard down the line and for a couple of years now. Look out for the Panthers and Patrick Kane next year.
Listen, I don't think.
And I think that's something that I don't know what's going to happen with the Panthers here as we move forward, but I think it's a place he's always wanted to play. I've heard this. It's not like and also it's a place where you get out of that media spotlight that he's been in Chicago and New York. And if this whole thing in New York it gets too much for him, he's like whatever. Go to Florida and like everybody does. It's the law. When you get old, you move to Florida.
No, listen, I could see it. I'm just saying, I think Kane, knowing his situation, had too much of an ego to say, I'm going to really go there and I'm going to help them win a cup. He wasn't in any position to do that physically. He wasn't.
It's we don't. Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, right now, that's absolutely what it looks like, right? So it's hard to say. I mean, after the first two games of this playoffs, I was like, well, maybe this is the perfect. Maybe they did the perfect. It's just crazy how quickly.
You know what I said? I said he has to sustain this for the whole playoffs, and I knew he wasn't going to be able to. Yeah. Especially at that age, with that.
Absolutely.
He couldn't do it. So he was cheating on other ends of the ice, and that ended up hurting him too.
And he's such a big personality. You bring him into a room, like that, and you have guys in there that respect him. Obviously, there's no question that that it whacked out the chemistry, and it happened so late.
I've said the Rangers' defense is not great, and it's not
great. Shesterkin is a crazy competitor, though. That we learned that. I mean, that guy competes like more than any Russian goalie I think I've ever seen. I want to throw that out there. Just like I mean, it's a big statement. Maybe there's a lot of great Russian goalies, but I think Shesterkin is as fiery as any Russian goalie.
Accurate.
And I said this to Russ after the game. When you have an opportunity in your player to do something, you do it in spite of maybe the moment not being the right moment. And Trouba destroying Meier on that. They needed that hit when it was 0-0 or 1-0 as a momentum changer. And it happened at 2-0 when I think the game was pretty much over with. I'm not saying he shouldn't have taken it because he destroyed Meier and it was. I mean, everybody said it was a clean hit, even though it looked like it was principal.
It was so Stevens Lindros. It was ridiculous. Like
it was. I mean, there's no doubt.
Reminiscent of that hit.
What's interesting, Eck, is scouting the refs had it right. I mean, while other people were pulling out the basic rule that you can't hit in the head, yes, that's great. But the thing was, where Trouba was, where he was making the hit. Because Meier had his head down, there is a rule that basically says if the guy can't get his head out of the way and is in the process of being hit, there is a point where that's not a penalty. And that's what they called on the ice. And I get it. Listen, if you want to get mad because he flattened Meier, that's fine. But we also know, Eck, that Timo Meier does his best in the corners too. He's not a totally clean player.
No, Timo Meier is not. If New Jersey loses today, and if that hit never happens, and New Jersey loses today, the talk would have been about what an awful trade that was. Like because Meier had 0 points in that series, 0 points.
Now he was contributing in other ways. I did see him do a lot of good things.
Yeah, but
still, in the corner, he was doing that. Still, you need points out of him.
You need a point or two. I mean, Russ, you just can't 0 is 0. Like there's a big difference. Even an assist or a goal, it's like 0 is 0.
I'm going to say this to Chris from Long Island in the best possible way. Trouba, if he's a disappointment, he would still be the second best defenseman on the Islanders. So it doesn't matter if Trouba's scoring points.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is he as big a disappointment as 5 of the Islanders forwards making $5 million? I mean,
let's state it right where it is, Russ. The Islanders and the Rangers finished the same way at the same time.
Did, but what I'm saying is
they made it a game further
because he didn't have points. That's not his job. They have other guys for that. He does get points. Don't get me wrong. And he did have a shot that almost went in yesterday, but that's not his main job. His main job is what he did against Meyer and what he did in most of that series.
Patrick Kane will be an interesting thing to watch in the summer. We'll get to plenty of that. We don't have to talk about that. But there's going to be a lot of speculation on what's going to happen there, because I really think, that there were promises made here, and I'm going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Like, I just don't know. I don't know. Anyway, all right. Let's move on tonight because I spent a long time today, Mike, on this game. As you saw, my article was. I don't write long articles. It's not
voluminous. I would say voluminous.
But I think I had a lot of points in it that were pretty right on, because these teams have never. The great thing about this next round is that only the Devils and Carolina Hurricanes have ever played each other in the playoffs. Like they played each other 4 times in the aughts, right? But they haven't played since then. Carolina won 3 of the series. The Devils won 1. But the other teams have never played each other in the playoffs. And no one has won a Stanley Cup since Carolina. So it's really fascinating. Talk about wide open field. It is absolutely wide open. And so I went into like a lot of different things on my article, Mike. But the one I wanted to kind of throw out, like just to you, is the similarities, which we talked a little bit about yesterday, are crazy. There are so many similarities between these two teams in the way they won the first round. Just the fact they each only won one game at home. The fact that they each won multiple games on the road, Florida winning 2 in overtime, Toronto winning 3 in overtime.
Right.
The fact that, everybody says, there were 3-on-1 against the Panthers this year. Yeah, but
I know you bristle at the point, but again, I will say this for Florida.
Yeah.
That I would say the majority of the games, Boston was the better of the two teams. For the majority of the game, but that right. they won games like the game 5 in Boston when Tkachuk scored the overtime winner, and I think they were the better team in game 7 against Boston. But Toronto, I will say to my dying day, they were the worst of the two teams in terms of play in offensive zone in all 3 of the games in Tampa, and they won all 3 of them.
They were the worst in the first 2 periods of all the games. Okay, but the reality was that the third period, like Kevin said, that aptly, Tampa doesn't have the energy to keep going. So if this was a 2-period game, Tampa moves on. Right. But the reality is it's a 3-period game, and there we have it. Right.
I'll tell you the biggest thing I think that the Leafs have to worry about. If this is Vezina Bob, which it looks like it might be.
Well, no, they said Alex Lyon left the ice first. So unless Maurice is playing games,
that's a game.
I think it's a mistake if they.
That's a game. That's a game. 100% a game. Unless Bob has a slight injury that we don't know about.
Right.
Which is very possible, because I thought, and I'll tell you why I think that's possible. There's no inside information or anything like that, but I thought they went to Bob 1 game later than they normally would have in the last series.
Okay.
I thought playing game 3 for Lyon, or whatever. Lyon played in game 4. Yeah, right. He played game 4, right? Yeah, that's right. So Lyon played. It felt like it was time to go to Bob in game 4, and they didn't.
This is still going to be a series where Toronto's going to have to outscore Florida, because Florida has just as good an offense, and the Leafs are going to have to deal with Tkachuk because he is going to go after guys besides scoring points. That's a fact. I think if Bob's not in there, then the edge goes to the Leafs. If Bob is in there for most of the series, I think the edge goes to Florida. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I went 7 games, and we'll get to predictions in a second, but I honestly don't know how to go with it, because I think that the other fascinating thing is, you always look at who the team's just played, and how that's going to look differently, because you play against a team for 6 games in a row, you come out then against another team. You're going to notice big differences, and Florida's going to obviously notice that there's no Charlie McAvoy on defense. The defense that the Leafs have is not nearly the defense that the Bruins have.
Well, the Bruins had 2 number 1s, although Hampus Lindholm didn't have any points in 7 games, so he must have been playing injured. But the Boston's defense, and Orlov is essentially a number 1.
I mean, that defense was crazy good, and the Panthers had to battle like hell to get opportunities to score. And they were definitely out of opportunity by Boston in the series, because of that. There was no way. I mean, you just couldn't get through this. So it's going to be a lot easier to get through Toronto. Now, whether I think the goaltending is going to be better for Toronto than it was for Boston. I didn't think Ullmark was good at all, honestly, in the series.
Well, Ullmark
wasn't very good.
Allmark was injured. They said groin injury that he was battling.
Why the hell were they playing him? You know what I mean? It's like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like they have 2-1 goalies.
Right, and that's what at this point of the year, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about who's injured.
Yeah, I hate that.
Hurt. I want to hold the coaches accountable for like, hey, if you feel like that guy even injured is your best choice, that's fine, but that's on you. But that's
this is not like that. Not like they had a nothing backup on that team. They have like they have the guy who thought was going to be the starter on that team, right? And you know who he really is. So
they had the guy who's going to win the Vezina. So that's
but regular season. But if he's hurt, then what? Right. Then that's if you know he's hurt, like Russ is saying. What are you doing? Like, do you think you can even beat Florida with a hurt goalie? That's
very squirrely. He asked, go talk to Bob Essenza about it. Like all of a sudden, it's out of my control. It's like you're the last word. The goalie coach or whatever Bob Essenza's role is with the Bruins. That's just hey, this is what I would do. But you're the last word.
Yeah, you have to say something.
So everything in terms of Alex Lyon is being based on the fact that he left the ice first for practice.
Yeah, we can't go with that.
So more than likely, I would think based on the fact that Bobrovsky played the last 3 games and they won all 3.
Maybe they're giving him a day off. Maybe.
I will tell you something that I do know on the inside, and that is Florida loves to screw with the Toronto media. So I would not be shocked at all if there's something.
That's exactly what I said because Matthew Tkachuk was being interviewed this morning after the morning skate, and he was like, "Well, there's no doubt in my mind Toronto was the best of the teams remaining."
Of course he's going to say that.
Of course he's going to say that. That is, and you know what? Fine. Paul Maurice used to be in Toronto. He knows how to handle the Toronto media.
He does.
Matthew Tkachuk is well schooled in that. He's been in the Canadian market.
Oh yeah, they all get it.
You got to give Maurice credit. He got burnt out in Winnipeg. He admitted it.
Well, I think the Winnipeg players burnt him out based on what
clearly they're not helping the situation now either.
They're never going to be 100%.
But I'll say
he's always been a good coach.
I'll say this. Toronto better not underestimate Florida at their own peril, because if they do, this team will beat the crap out of you. And I'm not saying physically, but physically and mentally, they came back against a team that everybody thought that they were going to beat. Everybody thought they were going to lose to, and they beat them.
The Bruins lost they were something like 50-0 going into the second period this year, going into the third period. They lost 2 games to the Panthers leading going into the third period.
And something, and I'm writing about this right now, something that not too many people have pointed out. They did it with their best 2 players not playing well. One because of sickness, Barkov. The other one, Ekblad, because of injury. Ekblad had no points in 6 games in this series against the Bruins. He's, when he's healthy, he's a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman.
And believe me, Barkov was obviously not 100%. Like I watch a lot of Florida Panthers games.
No, he wasn't.
What the heck is going on with him?
I think the Leafs get the most out of their top guys more than Florida, at least right now, because that's how it's been. But I do think Florida has been getting that secondary scoring more than the Leafs have. Yeah. And I think both of them have high-powered offenses. But, look, I already know what the Leafs can do, right? I was really impressed with the waves of offense that Florida was able to put on against Boston. Like, that was something that Boston had not seen all year probably from any team.
But what you have to remember is the Florida Panthers.
And Montour was a big reason, yes.
Florida Panthers set a record for goals scored last year. Like this is
the same team, Mac. This is
not that different, Mike. I mean, it's
when Kachuk has changed the mentality of it.
Yes.
But Kachuk has made them and it just helped them. I mean, honestly, from that,
No, but he changed the mentality of it. Like you could see last game when I think Kachuk got a goal in that game, and he went over to the bench and he fired them all up. Like that was basically like Braveheart. Like that was the same kind of feeling in Braveheart.
He is more important than any coach. Like he is doing what you're doing.
Best player in the first round for any team.
Yeah.
You can take our homes, but you can't take freedom.
Absolutely.
That's what that was like.
To watch him play, but remember, like they do find scoring from all over the place. And Montour and Verhaeghe, Cousins. These guys are
Lundell. I think is coming of age too.
Yeah, Lundell is a really good playmaker, and the reality is that the one thing that they have that Tampa didn't have, Barkov is a better defensive player than anybody on Tampa. So the offense,
yes.
So then any forward. So if you're going to when you get back to Florida and you want to match lines, even though it's hard to match against Toronto because they got three crazy good centers. Well, but Barkov will be able to help a little bit there.
Where Toronto is going to have to take advantage of Florida in this series is Florida's defense, because Florida's defense is, I think, below average. With Ekblad not at 100%, Montour is great. Montour's played fantastic this year. He had 73 points. He had 5 goals in the first round. He's been fantastic. Their number 2 defenseman all season was Gustav Forsling. Gustav Forsling is barely a top 4 defenseman.
That's true. I mean, that's all true about their – but, it's funny, Mike. We all killed their defense most of the year. And then when their goaltending got just a little better, we stopped whining about their defense.
Sure. Yes. But I think
that's what made up the difference.
Radko Gudas is physical, and he looks like a Civil War general with that beard, but he's slow. And the thing is, if you can get by him, which I think a lot of the Toronto forwards can, then you can take advantage of him.
So it's not as slow. He's not as slow as you.
No, he's not. He's not like Brad.
I mean, he's not speedy, but he's not like he's not slow.
He's not Brad Marsh slow, but he's like.
But he's gonna catch one of the Leafs in a hip check like he always does, and he's not gonna get a penalty for it. And all the Leafs are going to go crazy like he just killed somebody. Like
and then Michael Bunting breathes on somebody, gets suspended for 5 games. There you go.
I mean, Gudas's anticipation makes up for his speed all the time. Like he's very good. He really knows where to go.
I'm going to be honest about something. I didn't know Gudas had a dad that played in the league. I had no idea.
Neither did I.
Yeah, neither did I.
Leo Gudas. I didn't know who the hell he was.
Yeah, I mean, so honestly, this series is the one thing I wrote that's kind of funny is that the team should thank each other when they get on the ice tonight, because they both knocked out the others.
You should do a handshake line before the game starts
because Boston. Yeah, because the Leafs are thrilled not to be playing Boston, but I don't know if they're more thrilled not to be playing Boston than the Panthers are not to be playing Tampa.
I mean, this is a brave new world act. Like I think that was like everybody was holding on to those old things, and now that they're not there, we really don't know who the big – I mean, honestly, of all the teams left, I put in picks like everybody else. Do I know for certain who the biggest threat is to win the cup now? Not really.
Well, that's why that the title of my blog today is "Has the Road Been Cleared for Toronto?" And I think that outwardly, you look at. I mean, I picked Boston and the Rangers to be in the Eastern Conference Final, and both of them are gone. But the one thing that Toronto has got to guard against is complacency, is being satisfied with the fact, okay, finally we got past the first round for the first time in 19 years. Now you have this opportunity where Carolina is wounded, New Jersey is not very experienced, and Florida has flaws. But you know what? You've got to step on their necks and kill them. And if you allow Florida to do what they did against Boston, you're going to lose.
I will say this for the chat room to Mike Polsky. Mike, the only reason I talked about the Rangers' future is because I've just come off this game. I'd spoken to a lot of New York people yesterday. Give us a couple days to figure out what Boston should do, because I'm not as familiar with them as I am with the Rangers. So
we were that's that the Rangers' future is very different.
So Sevi in the chat is asking, am I predicting a Panthers victory? Panthers in 7.
Panthers in 7. Russ?
Wow. That blew me away. I'm going to be honest. I was not expecting that.
You weren't expecting that?
No. I thought for
sure.
You ever
watched the
show? I do watch the show. I've actually been a part of probably 500 of these stupid shows.
Have you ever seen it? I mean,
no, but
you really think he would pick the Leafs ever?
No, but it seemed like Mike hopped over the Rainbow Bridge on the last show and was actually going to be pro-Leafs in this. I really thought he did that. I'm picking Panthers in 6, but I am blown away that Mike didn't do it. I thought for sure this was going to be the change in Mike, that all of a sudden he was going to go with the Leafs.
Russ, I'm as constant as the North Star.
Yeah, you really are, man. Without the
meditation, you always rather be happy than right, Mike. Mike would rather be happy than right. So basically, that's why if he picks the Panthers,
that's what it is. I think that's you hit
it. If he picks the Panthers, it's like okay.
That's Mike's equivalent of win-win.
Panthers in 6. Wow, I did not see that coming. Leafs in 7. And
of course,
no, this is I am not doing this just to screw with you, Mike. I promise you, I don't do that.
It's
But
it still has the same result. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, the reality here is that I don't have that in me. No, I think this is clear that the Leafs are going to. And it could be quicker than that. Like a part of me wants to go Leafs in 6, but I don't. I don't know. I think that the thing that I worry about with the Panthers is that was such a big emotional thing to beat Boston. And it's going to be tough. Like Game 1 tonight. Game 1 tonight's going to be very big in many, many ways.
Well, they're both dealing with the same thing. They're both dealing with the same thing in the sense that they have to guard against being satisfied.
But historically, when you look at the biggest upsets, the team that has that big upset doesn't go any further. And that's just honestly the reality of things. Like because it's such an emotional deal to beat. Like they won the Stanley Cup.
Both teams had the same equal upset, so that's where they did.
They do. Oh gosh. No, I think that they both have equal emotional things, and where the Leafs have to be careful tonight, in my mind, is they won that game on the road, and this crowd's going to be nuts tonight, and this is going to be they're going to be crazy. And
all right, but we have to talk about something.
Let me finish this one thought. Finish this one thought. Then will the Leafs come out and try to perform for their crowd and try to be offensive? If they do that, they're going to fall into the Panthers' spot.
We had a preview of that in Game 1 where the crowd was all hyped up at Scotiabank Arena, and they gave up a goal in the opening minute to Corey Perry, and it was
right.
I do want to say this in the most basic possible way: the geo-blocking of Leafs fans to try and get tickets for these games is Bush League.
Yeah, and you know what? Enjoy all those empty seats in Sunrise, folks.
Won't be any empty seats in Sunrise.
Well, I mean, they've
already.
If they didn't think that they were going to have a ticket problem, they definitely would open it up. So I do agree that it probably will fill up. But the point is, it should be first come, first serve. That's the point.
Yeah. No, I would do it. I heard Elliot Friedman talk about this, and I kind of agree with him. I would have a 1-day Florida only sale, where you say, okay, because give
them the opportunity to buy everything up, and if you don't, tough luck. That's
right.
Okay.
1-day sale, and after that, it's open. Because that gives you a chance at least, because it is. Ticketmaster is a pain in the neck, and all that crap is a pain in the neck. So just do a 1-day sale.
I'll tell you, I like the idea.
It's not going to stop Toronto fans, because we know that it'll be.
There are going to be a lot of Florida fans who are going to be making a lot of money.
Secondary market, StubHub, and everything. They'll be raking in money. So and like I said, the Leaf fans basically.
And that's even, Mike, honestly, because I know, and that's even honestly why they wanted to limit this even more. I think because the reality is the ticket people who are really good at buying tickets and selling tickets knew that this was a big ticket for Toronto, and are going to. These aren't even Maple Leaf fans; these are people in New York and stuff like that who are buying the tickets to put on StubHub to sell the Leaf fan.
Well, I mean,
I think there's some of that, but I still don't like the idea.
Listen to the response in the crowd when Tavares scored the OT winner in Tampa. It sounded like Scotiabank Arena. There were a lot of Leaf fans there.
It was loud, but again, if I'm going to get into the mentality of a Lightning fan, I've already got my cups. This is a game where I'm not sure about. I can make my money now and be safe.
Yeah, it's a first round game. It's like I mean, this is a team that's seen 4 playoffs.
I don't blame Lightning fans for
4 years in a row,
They've been there the whole time with them winning cups. I
mean, this is only the first round of 4 that they usually see there. So to me, it's like I think that at the end of the day, this is there will be a lot of Leaf fans there, but I think if you did the 1-day sale and you challenged Panthers fans properly, and you went okay, let's show them what we're all about and buy all these tickets up in 1 day from Florida. Not that people still would have been able to somehow IP mask and get in there from these other places, because that's all going to happen.
Yeah,
but at least then they could have sold them on one day. Why don't go the other game quickly?
Yeah, exactly. Seattle Dallas opens tonight, and I give Seattle all the credit in the world for beating Colorado.
But
we no, let me
continue.
We know that Colorado had injury issues with Landeskog, and the whole Nichushkin thing was a complete off the ice distraction. Plus Makar was out for a game, and they ended up losing that game. I picked Dallas to come out of the West in the Stanley, to be the representative in the Stanley Cup.
Only because you hate Edmonton.
No, because I think Dallas is the better team. That's why. And I still do. And I think, now question is when Pavelski will be back. We don't know whether that'll be early in the series, late in the series, or not at all. But I do think Dallas is the better team. And I think, Seattle will fight hard, but I'm picking Dallas in 6 games.
Yeah, I'm going Dallas in 6 because on the strength of Ottinger and Robertson and guys like Hintz and still the old guard. I can't believe I'm calling him the old guard, but Seguin's been pretty beat up and, with all the hip surgeries and Ben, and they're still pulling it. This could be the last go round for them. And I think they're going to have a little bit more. I think Seattle is going to play this super defensively and take the goals they can get and try and lock down leads. And I think they're going to have a hard time doing it.
Yeah, this is going to be a low-scoring series. If Dallas extends it, it'll be a low-scoring series. But maybe
if Seattle had Anton Khudobin, maybe it would be a better series.
That was for you, Tony.
I think this is Ottinger is the best goalie left in the playoffs in my mind. That's a tough one, and I think that's
whoa, not Jack Campbell.
No,
I think that's fair.
Campbell's the best goalie on Edmonton. This is the best goal. Actually, Campbell's the best goalie on any Canadian team. I'll throw that out there. But
for Christ!
But okay, but we won't go there. But no, I think Ottinger is so hard to bet against. Ottinger is like the can't wait for the U.S. Olympic team. Ottinger makes me want to see that so much. I want to see that battle
because he's going to be. Matt Murray is better than Campbell, but anyway.
Matt Murray can't put his skates on.
If he plays.
Matt Murray can't put his skates on, Mike. So let's just throw that out there.
He's still better than Campbell, even if he gets.
There you go. We'll play in his sneakers.
How many playoff wins does Matt Murray have this year?
Oh boy.
Let Ek finish.
Ek's finished. Seattle in 7.
Okay.
I'm going Seattle in 7, and because I believe. I'm a believer now. I just.
Is it Hackstall? What is it? What is it?
It is partly age for Dallas. I think that they were great against Minnesota. It's not Hackstall. Definitely not Hackstall.
I did. By the way, I did watch the video of the coaches hugging Hackstall. He did have a little bit of a smile,
but he went away so fast. Like, did you see him standing on? Did you watch it?
It wasn't like he was stone faced. It wasn't like Steve Carell from The Office.
I am 100% on the Seattle Kraken bandwagon. Okay, I think we're going to see a Kraken Stanley Cup.
Are you having salmon for dinner tonight?
Oh, I hate salmon.
How could you be a Kraken?
All the fish. It's just the one. I love seafood. I can't stand salmon.
Why do you hate salmon?
It might be the color. I don't know what it is, but it's something about salmon. I just don't like it.
It's the least fishy tasting fish.
It is.
No, I love tuna. I love flounder. I'll eat bluefish, which is very fishy. I'll eat that every day of the week. But no. Anyway,
interesting.
Something about salmon with me. I've just never had salmon.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, no, I just think that long live the Sasquatch. I'm going to say I like the Seattle aspect of things. I just think that youth will prevail, and I think that they are just believing in themselves in a way
that young. That's the thing. They're not that young.
They're not that young, but they
added 26, 7-year-olds this year.
But there are some guys that really. Pavelski getting back is great, but he's also Suter is good, but he's also these guys are like.
But Suter's not playing 28 minutes a night anymore. No. He's playing 22. It's like
that's 22 minutes for Suter's play. I mean, and listen, I don't know. I mean, Ben and Seguin have their moments, but I do think that I love Dallas's depth, and they are set up actually like I usually say teams should be to win a Stanley Cup. Like they have the old guys, they have the young guys, they have the whole thing.
They do seem to have a good mix. I will say
that blend and the great goalie. They are in a spot where if I was to pick who would be the best shot, they've got a serious shot at this. But when you look at it just that way, but for some reason, I just think Seattle's going to steal it. I don't know what it is.
Okay, that's fair.
I could be totally wrong, but I haven't been before, so we'll see. All right. And I don't mean to downplay this game, but it's hard to it's it's a nice fish. Okay, I'm not saying I have nothing against them personally. I think they probably are very nice.
You do have to get the salmon wild. You can't get it farm raised.
Right. I know that. And my wife, my mom calls it salmon, but my mom loves it. We always joke about that. But yeah, it's we.
My favorite salmon is Tim Salmon, the outfielder from the Anaheim Angels.
Salmon Ruski. Anyway, yeah, I think
salmon croquette. Have you had a nice salmon croquette ever?
No, if it has salmon in it, I'm not eating it.
Oh, salmon croquettes are nice, with potato and yeah, they're nice.
I don't know. It's the color of the fish partially. It definitely is the color from being.
It's fake coloring. That's what I'm saying. I think if you bought the right type,
it's not supposed to be pink.
No, it's not supposed to be pink. It's more reddish than pink, and
right.
And so sometimes, yeah, I would say this. I don't know if you've had the right salmon yet.
I don't know if I have had the right salmon yet, Russ.
I mean, certainly you haven't had.
If someone out there wants to tell me a restaurant I can go to that has the best salmon, I'm a tuna guy.
You haven't had a good smoked salmon with a schmear and a bagel. If you don't like that, we're done.
No smoked fish. I don't like smoked fish at all. No. Mm-hmm.
But but there's a thing there. Have you tried them all together? It's a thing.
Yes, I have. I've been at my share of bar mitzvahs and Jewish weddings in my life, and I have tried. I've been. Do
you like fried onions?
Fried onions, yes.
Do you like eggs?
No, not really.
See, lox, eggs, and onions is really good.
Yeah, see, eggs are something I don't know. I'll eat once in a while, and I don't hate eggs, but I just but it's not. I don't go out of my way to ever eat eggs.
Okay, no, that's fair. There are some people that don't like eggs.
Well, I can't.
I've really not met many that don't like salmon. That's the funny thing.
To answer that question, I cannot eat raw fish. I just can't.
No, I can't. I don't like raw fish either.
I like sushi. I do. So, but not all kinds of sushi. But I do like.
But you don't eat the salmon part in the sushi though.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't eat. No.
The only sushi I eat is like that with cooked shrimp or cooked something.
I'll take a spicy tuna roll every day of the week. Those are amazing.
Okay.
Those are incredible. And but yeah, I got introduced to sushi of all places in Nashville, Tennessee. That was where because it was 1990. I'm dating myself a little bit. 1994 when I was recording an album in Nashville, where I was hanging out with Shania, and that's where I first got introduced. The people down there took me to sushi places, which in 1994 I don't think were really up here very much. I'd never heard of it before. So,
which hockey jersey was Shania wearing, Ek? That's the important thing.
She's an Ottawa Senators fan.
Pavel Bure. She had the one she had with her was a Pavel Bure Vancouver Canucks jersey. That's what I saw.
She's an Ottawa Senators fan.
Now she is, but I don't think the Ottawa Senators existed then.
No, 91. 91.
Okay, right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she was wearing an Alexander Daig jersey.
But she went for Bure because he was a big star. That's fine.
I was there the last year of the Nashville Knights. The year I recorded my album, which is my favorite story. So I was there the last year of the Nashville Knights, who were the ECHL affiliate of the Atlanta Knights for the ACHL. The NHL was the Tampa Bay Lightning. So Tampa, Atlanta, and Nashville was the ECHL. They had a small arena, and the Nashville Knights played there. And I went to like a bunch of games during when I was recording that album and loved it. And it was their final season. I was there for their final game ever before they tore the place down and just closed the franchise. I have a jersey from that game that they gave away jerseys off the players' backs, and I happened to win one. So I was like, that was really crazy. And that was my first. That's why I've always had like a little Nashville hockey thing in my head.
Yeah.
From back then.
All right. So here's what I will say about the challenge of Michael Jackson over Prince.
Okay.
Growing up with the Jackson 5, seeing the immense stardom. Now, forget about Michael Jackson's personal life because I don't want to talk about that. But just the immense stardom that Michael Jackson had, I feel like he could have done anything in music he wanted to do. So I have to pick Michael Jackson.
Yeah, but he said post Jackson 5.
It doesn't matter. Post Jackson 5, he was still the biggest star on earth. Like it didn't matter.
No, I agree with that. Okay,
he's the biggest star, but I will take Prince.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will. I think Prince's skill for songwriting was just. I mean, Jackson was really good.
Did write songs too.
He wrote great songs. No, like Billie Jean. These are phenomenal songs. There's great songs Michael Jackson wrote, and he also had really good producers working with him.
Good collaborators. He picked guys like Slash.
Just like if you took I actually heard somebody do a piano voice version of Billie Jean, just piano and voice, like that just blew my mind. Like you hear how good a song is when you strip it down to that level.
Like remember, it was his choice to pick Slash, and that was a ballsy thing to do for a pop guy.
What for?
Yeah.
Dirty Diana?
No, for Thriller.
No, no, that was for
Wasn't it?
Thriller.
Whatever song it was, I forget which song.
Oh, no, it was Eddie Van Halen for Beat It.
No, but he did use Slash too.
Slash.
It was for Dirty Diana. I'm pretty
Was
sure.
it? I thought it was something else. Okay.
All right,
No,
NHL Draft Lottery Simulator.
NHL Draft Simulator. Here we are, 7 days away from this. Let's
we
go.
go.
Sim it up, Mike. We're simming.
The Columbus Blue Jackets.
Flyers get Fantilli Lace again. Wow.
Will they pick him? Is the question.
Don't you think they would pick him? I know how much they love. I know that.
No, I think they would pick him too.
I know that for a fact that they love him. They would. I mean, they would definitely go obviously with Connor Bedard at number one, but they think Fantilli is a number.
Oh, Mike, it was Black or White. That was the song.
Black. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that he did with Slash.
I hate to tell you, every single time we've done the lottery, the Canadians have finished sixth.
I know that's because their time is coming. Mike.
He didn't play on Black or White. That's a myth. Never mind.
Their time, Montreal's time is coming, and it won't be. It'll be the real ping pong balls that determine.
I will tell you this: that would be the worst possible. Well, the second worst possible place for Connor Bedard to go would be Montreal.
Yes.
Why? Why do you think that?
Because pressure.
Because they have a psychotic fan base who will crush that kid if he has a slow week. You know, they'll destroy him. Like, you know, I mean, they did that with Doug Wickenheiser.
Yeah. I mean, I was speaking with a Montreal reporter yesterday, and it was funny because he was complaining about one of their draft picks. And I'm like, well, what about Louis LeBlanc? That poor kid was defeated before he ever got to the podium for being a Canadians draft pick and being a French-speaking kid. So
it is harder for French-speaking kids, but Bedard is not a French-speaking kid.
I know. Bedard would still do well. I don't know if he would be a superstar there because it's hard to be a superstar now in Montreal.
At this time, it is, but it won't be forever. You know, like, and in my opinion, like this is a fan base that's, while they will tear people down, will absolutely fall head over heels for people too. And if they got Bedard, I think they would fall head over heels.
Yeah, that's right. It was Steve Lukather and Beat It, and I like Lukather a lot. I saw Toto live. He's a great guitarist, actually.
Yes.
We can't compare like guys like Alex Kalinch. You can't compare that.
They're saying he was
No,
somebody.
but this is Connor Bedard.
He was somebody that was ruined by Montreal.
Yeah, but he was no. I mean, he.
Yes, he was ruined.
Yeah, but there's a different.
All right, Eck. All I would say is this:
the Canadians have never been this low.
Do you think the Canadians handled Slavkovsky right this past?
No, definitely not. No.
And that's what they would do with Bedard. Bedard will make that team no matter what.
Bedard's different than that.
He is different, but the team isn't great defensively. They're not going to have a ton of support for him. And while they have a couple of great players, St. Louis does play it kind of fast and loose, and I'm not sure that would be the best thing for him.
It might be. It might be though. I mean, it
might be points, but it might not be for total.
It might. I mean, I would love to see Caulfield and Bedard. I mean, that combination would be ridiculous. I think. I think that combination would be something else. They're building from the ground up. So Canadians fans, the expectations are not going to be like they're going to win a Stanley Cup next year, no matter what you do. So this is actually the perfect time to go into Montreal, in my opinion. If you're going to be a player, like if you're going to go in as a Bedard player, it's not like if they were already on the verge and Bedard could take him over the top.
I don't know. You got to turn Slavkovsky into something first. You got to hope that he rebounds like I think he will, but you got to hope
he will. But but Bedard is different. It's different. Obviously, like he's a different level than all those guys.
He is.
Like this is like if this is like not like getting McDavid, but it's as close as you can get to getting McDavid probably. So it's like you're talking about a different world here.
And what if the Penguins got Bedard? What would happen to the world, to Twitter? What would happen?
I would say that Flyers fans would say that someone is forever to keep the Penguins in superstar. The Penguins
can't get Bedard. They didn't finish 11th.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's the only reason. Good. That's probably the only reason they can't, because they're due another superstar somewhere down the line.
The Capitals could get Bedard, and that's
is there another guy after Bedard next year, the year after that? Rest that people are like crazy.
Yeah, Max Celebrini. He's playing for the Chicago Steel. He just won an award. He was in the U18s. He was the high scorer for Canada and the tournament.
But who's Michael Misa?
No, he's not. Yzerman and Celebrini are the two that are.
The Celebrini is next year or the year after that?
Next year.
Next year. Okay. All right. We'll be back for that.
We'll have our prediction for the other games tomorrow.
Remember, we'll talk about the games tomorrow, and we'll get into them because those are going to be some interesting predictions, Mike. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you all then. Enjoy the game tonight. I can't wait.
No, they won't. They won't be interesting.